Hi, this is Colleen McGee welcoming you to another episode of Fort Riley, the podcast. This week, we are paying honor to our Vietnam War era veterans. March 29th is National Vietnam War Veterans Day. In honor of their service, we are listening to a few of our Big Red One Vietnam era veterans as they share a little bit of their personal stories.
We're interviewing Matt Hacker, who was born on the 9th of September in 1943. I am Alexander Mildrum.
I am Raj Murugan. I'm Nick Ladars.
We're working with Naperville North High School, and Mr. Matt Hacker was in the United States Army, the 1st Infantry and 1st Cavalry. He was a first lieutenant, and he served in Vietnam. All right, Mr. Hacker, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted. I was a student at Western Michigan University, and when I graduated there, I was 26 years old. And in May of 1968, there was no doubt where I would be going once I graduated. I decided to enlist in the OCS program and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for basic training in AIT, and went to Fort Benning, Georgia for infantry training and mortar school.
Why did you pick the Army?
At that point in time, it just seemed there were more options available in the Army than there were in the some of the other branches. I didn't particularly like the water, so the Navy was out. The Marines also were amphibious, so I didn't particularly like that issue. So I chose to stay with the Army. At that point in time, you could select 3 of the 12 branches to go into in the Army. I selected quartermaster, 2 others, and wound up in infantry.
Do you recall your first days of service?
First days in service were in basic training in Fort Dix. It was in May of 68. It was hot, sandy, dirty. That's about all I remember of it. Again, the war was on. It was a very crammed course to get people trained. When you went through basic and AIT, you were with people who were enlisted, people who had been drafted, people who maybe the courts had sent to jail, sent to the service rather than to jail. So you had quite a mix of people that you started out with. When I went to officer candidate school in Fort Benning, again, it was another 6-month, very crammed course. But it was a different element of people that you were dealing with at that point.
Do you remember your instructors?
I don't think anybody forgets the DIs after the first few weeks. They have a difficult job to bring all these different people from various backgrounds and train them into a unit. It's a tough job, but you do remember. I remember the faces. I don't remember the names. After I graduated from OCS, I was assigned as an executive officer at a training unit for NCOCs, non-commissioned officers at Fort Benning. I suspect there's probably a few people down there that still remember my face.
Do you remember any of their mannerisms or?
They're very disciplined. They're very straightforward. There's at the point that you're a trainee, there's not a friendship, relationship, or camaraderie. It's yes sir, no sir, and move on.
How did you get through it?
Well, given the alternatives, there wasn't a whole lot of choice. You either worked as a team and survived as a team, or you didn't survive. And given the the fact that everyone, probably 90% of the people that you were with were going to wind up in Vietnam. At the time, it was in your best interest to learn what they were trying to teach you and remember it as best you could. There was everything coming at you from weapons information to map reading, any kind of survival techniques, you name it. And it was all thrown at you, and it was an 8-week, and then a 6-month training program that I went through. So in those 10 months, you basically had your full gamut of survival and logistics training to learn and remember.
You served in Vietnam, and where exactly did you go?
I was in the south sector of Vietnam. I was right up in this area up here. When I went in country, I landed at Long Binh Airport. I landed there on Thanksgiving Day of 68. Vivid memory, we were in our khakis and whatnot as we got off the plane. We got off the plane, went to a bus, and we're going to the redeployment depot. As we moved out of Ben Long Binh Air Base in Ben Long, right at the front gate, there was a guy with a tripod skinning a dog. I remember that to this day. You didn't see a lot of pets in Vietnam. You know, they were food.
What was your assignment?
My first assignment was with the 1st Infantry Division, commonly known as the Big Red One. We were working in the Delta region and up along Long Bay, Song Bay, Phuc Binh. We were basically just sort of security forces. We would go out and patrol. We would work with the ARVNs from time to time, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. We patrolled what they called Thunder One, which was it was a dirt road, but it was the main road from the north to the south in the sector, used for supplies and troop movement, etc. I was assigned to a unit, 1st of the 26th, nicknamed the Blue Spaders, and was just assigned a unit and put in the field about 6 days after I landed in Vietnam.
Do you have any memorable experiences from any of those patrols?
Oh, there were a lot of them. The first patrol we went on was somewhat interesting. We were in the Michelin rubber plantation, and our job as infantry was to guard the tanks. This rubber plantation had rows and rows of rubber trees. The unique thing about it was a very lucrative business for the Vietnamese, and you couldn't shoot the rubber trees. In other words, if you were on tank duty, the tanks would run up and down between the rows of trees. And what would happen is the Vietnamese were very ingenious, and they would hide in these little holes, jump up on the tank and throw a frag in the tank or blow up the tank. It was our job to keep up from getting on the tanks. And if you got into a firefight or something, you were supposed to not shoot at the trees at all expense, which to me was not one of the more pleasant things in the world. My main mission was to get myself and my men home, hopefully in one piece, and we did shoot a few rubber tree plants.
This is Joe Galloway conducting an oral history interview with Lieutenant Colonel Guy Huff, U.S. Army.
I was 29 years old when I went to Vietnam. I was born 18 September 1940 up in the northwest corner of Pennsylvania, a place called Conneaut Lake.
What were your initial duties?
Well, I had originally had orders to be the personnel sergeant at a in-country R&R base there at the Vung Tau, but the night after I arrived in Vietnam, someone came and sent me to an office. When I got there, they told me my orders had been changed and I was going to Loch Ninh to join the 1st Battalion of the 2nd Infantry Regiment in the 1st Infantry Division, better known as the Big Red One. So it was quite a shock to me. I had joked with some of my friends before I left country here that I was going to an R&R center and would be laying on the beach and playing a little golf. And
You were working on your golf
I
stroke.
certainly was. I certainly was. But a big surprise, and I ended up in the midst of things. And sorry to say that I went there to replace an NCO who had lost his life. And the battalion had taken great losses there in An Loch and Loch Ninh. We'd suffered.
This was what year?
This was 1969.
Yeah.
And we were hit pretty bad there.
What was your daily routine when you first took this job?
Well, the first thing I did in the morning normally was go in. If I hadn't been up during the night, I would go in the ops center and check on the operations of what we had done, what we'd been involved in, and check for casualties, both injured and the KIAs. And so that I could get an idea of, first of all, what type of replacements we would need. And then the battalion commander had asked me to take care of identifying all the KIAs that came back through the base headquarters, make sure that we knew exactly who they were, where they were going, and then helped him prepare condolence letters that he wrote to each of their spouses or mother or father.
It's a very
or parents.
somber duty.
It certainly was, and it was just an awful shock to this small town boy who had gone over there, and it was quite a shock to do that. But I took a great deal of pride in doing that, make sure that those KIAs were treated with respect and dignity, and later on look back on that with, as I say, a great deal of pride.
How do you think the Vietnam War is remembered today in our larger society?
Well, I think time heals a lot of wounds, and I think we're probably starting to think of it in a little better light. I think opportunities like this for people to speak about it and talk about it a little bit makes it a little bit more human to the folks that weren't there. As I say, I think as time goes on that the soldiers who fought there will be more respected and better thought of.
Did you take away from Vietnam more that was positive and useful than you invested in blood, sweat, and tears?
I don't know if I took away more, but I just learned that in this case the war was what drove us, but to develop the type of camaraderie that you do during war with those fellows that were on your left and right is just something that's hard to explain till you've experienced it. And I always thought that people who go through this, those types of experiences and so on, do become better people, have more appreciation for life itself, for the things that we have in this country. And as I say, I've always been proud of my service there, and learned that you know, to have someone's back and someone to have yours is really quite an experience to go through.
In the end, what did that war mean to you and your generation? Well,
I believe that it showed that even though you're required to do something that's not at all popular in the homeland, that if you do it with professionalism, do it with pride, and do it to the best of your knowledge, and the best of your capabilities, that you know, you can always hold your head up, and then leave it to history to decide whether what what that war produced was good or bad. But the war itself and the troops who served there, I guarantee you, was nothing but good.
You can find more of these stories at the Library of Congress on their oral history section. Just search for Fort Riley or the 1st Infantry Division, and you will find our soldiers telling their stories. Thank you for listening to Fort Riley, the podcast.